The New York Knicks are making moves as they have signed both DaQuan, Jeffries, and Jacob Toppin to 10-day contracts to fill out the quota to have 14 people on the roster. And we are going to talk about this because obviously the Knicks had to get this done, and they have opted to go with basically the deferral route of signing two 10-day contracts of guys who they either had a two-way contract with or have had previously in the season. So let's break this down. What's up, guys? Welcome back to Knicks Digest. It's Chris here, and we're going to jump right into the video as we always do. Because, as you may have seen earlier today, the New York Knicks have signed Jacob Toppin and DaQuan Jeffries to a 10-day contracts, the team says. Today was the last day they had to get to the minimum of 14 guaranteed roster spots as Taj Gibson's second 10-day contract expired over the All-Star break. Now, this means a few things. First things first, it means that we may have seen the last of Taj Gibson officially, though I've said that multiple times before, and then Taj Gibson manages to find his way back onto the New York Knicks. So I'm not going to say it this time, though it does feel like with the lack of them bringing him back right now, this could be the end of the road for Taj. So in case it is, thank you for everything, Taj. The NBA will miss you. But on a note specifically to the Knicks, we'll miss Taj Gibson also. No, I'm kidding. In reality, what we're looking at here is the Knicks have decided that instead of signing some veterans who could maybe help on the end of the bench or even be there for some minutes, they've signed two of their young guys. DaQuan Jeffries has been in and out of the NBA for a few years now. He's been great with the Knicks G League team. He started the season on the Knicks, though they did waive him after the OG Anunoby trade, as they brought in three players, Anunoby, Achua, and Malachi Flynn, and only gave out RJ and IQ, meaning that they did have 16 guys on the roster, so DaQuan Jeffries got cut from the team. But now he's back. He's back on a 10-day with the Knicks. He spent some time with the Knicks G League, as I mentioned, and Obi, I always do that. And Jacob Toppin, he's been on the Knicks with a two-way contract for a while now. The Knicks actually signed Jacob Toppin before they even traded older brother Obi Toppin to the Indiana Pacers, as they signed Jacob pretty much directly after the draft, as the Knicks did not have anyone in the draft. They had no picks, so they ended up signing undrafted free agent in Jacob Toppin. And Toppin's been great with the Knicks G League team also. The Knicks have gotten a lot of production out of him. Obviously, Jacob Toppin got absolutely screwed out of the NBA dunk contest. He should have been in the finals with Mac McClung. I hope they bring Jacob back next year because he got absolutely hosed right there. That was crazy. But also, we've seen something out of him in the G League, and I guess the Knicks are just going to go with this route of keeping guys who are in-house, which is pretty on par with Leon Rose. The Knicks are not going out of their way to sign new guys. What they've done instead is kind of deferred it. They could still go out there and sign someone. You have till the end of, or the beginning of March, to where you could sign a player and they could play on your playoff roster. So the Knicks have done these 10-way contracts while they figure out what to do next. This does not mean they're going to give Jacob Toppin a contract for the rest of the season with team options on the next few years. Same thing with DaQuan Jeffries. None of that means that that is definitively what's going to happen. All that we know right now is that the Knicks maybe didn't fully know what they were going to do and are trying to base this off of injuries. And that is a fair thing for the Knicks to do. I mean, if you're going off, okay, well, let's essentially wait till guys come back, see what the healthy team needs to as much as they can, because Mitch is not going to be back until you have to have guys on the rotation who could play in playoffs, and Randall's unclear right now. But I guess they want to see as healthy as possible what this team is missing. They'll know if what they're missing is Julius Randle or Mitchell Robinson, and that'll be fine because both are projected to come back this season. But if it's something different, then the Knicks are going to go out and try to use that on a veteran player. I don't know who that veteran player is going to be. It could literally be anyone. I could very likely see it being like Nerlens Noel or something, just while Mitch recovers. But Precious Achiuwa has been balling out. I don't think the Knicks want to do anything to hinder that. Who knows what is going to happen in the long term for this season, but right now, this is what we got. We got two warm bodies for the Knicks. We got guys who can play in the NBA, who have been playing in the NBA for at least a few games here and there, so that's a great sign. Now, as Bagley mentions that they signed both of them also, with Toppin on the 10-day, New York also has one two-way roster spot open, and they have an open spot for a traditional NBA contract, as they still only have 14 guys on the roster. They didn't get up to 15, And I just noticed that in this graphic, in the bottom left-hand corner, right next to RJ Barrett, is LeBron in a Knicks jersey. I never saw that before. Sorry, that distracted me. But really, I want the Knicks to have 15 players, and I think they will because it's the mature and appropriate thing to do for a basketball team that's going to be in the playoffs. You don't want to be shorthanded at all. You want to have extra players. If anything, players are going to want to play on a playoff team even if they're not playing on it. They want to be on that team. So the Knicks will get to 15, or they better get to 15. Leon Rose is way too good at his job to assume that he's not going to get the Knicks to 15 guys on the rotation. But it is something to keep an eye out for to see who those guys will be, because there's a chance it could be 3 new players completely. There's a chance it won't be either Toppin or DaQuan Jeffries, though I think it will probably be one or both of them still, and someone else. Now, I'm very curious to see what happens with that two-way spot. There's a good chance that the 10-day runs out for Jacob Toppin, and the Knicks go, all right, Jacob, that was fun. Back to the two-way contract. And Jacob's like, all right, sure, works for me. Still hanging on to the NBA, so that's solid. So they could definitely go that route. Or they could look at someone different, like maybe a young player who got, cut or just has not really showed out. For instance, and I hope not, but potentially you could throw a two-way at Killian Hayes. You could also throw one towards James Bouknight, who got drafted, I think, 11th overall by the Hornets, and then basically never got a chance to play in his NBA career. I was looking at that, and I'll be honest, I was looking at it on NBA 2K, just playing around with my league with the New York Knicks, and I thought that was an interesting move the Knicks could do. They could add a guy like Bouknight onto a two-way contract and kind of bank off the fact that he's never played over 10 minutes per game in a single season, and maybe that's why he never got anything going. Now, who knows what's going on behind the scenes? I have no idea. I know he grew up 10 blocks away from where I live now, but that's all I really know about James Bouknight because we never got to see his game at all when he was in Charlotte. I always am biased towards adding a New Yorker to the Knicks. I think that's where they're going to play their hardest, is on the team that they grew up watching, and I think that goes for literally every person who's in the NBA. But especially the Knicks, and especially, the 76ers or, the Celtics, because the Northeast is crazy about our professional sports. Especially in New York. So, we riot after everything. The Knicks fans do. Philadelphia fans do. Yankee fans will probably riot if Soto and Judge and all of them get them to the World Series. We riot. It's what we do. So I think that adding a New Yorker would be cool. That's why I look at a guy like James Bouknight and think this guy might have untapped potential because no one gave him a chance. And maybe that's something the Knicks could do with their two-way contract. Who really knows? I want to see it go to a young player. I want to see the Knicks give some young player who's kind of been counted out a chance. Does it usually work? No. I'll be honest, the success rate is very, very low for that. But you also never know when things are going to pan out. You never know when a player is just going to become a valuable member of your team. Look at the Dallas Mavericks. Out of nowhere, they picked up Dante Exum, and he's been pretty good with them. We've seen this happen before. We see players who were high picks kind of hang on because they were high picks, and then eventually they figure out a nice role for themselves. It took Markelle Fultz some time, but now he's a real NBA player, and obviously he was the first overall pick, so that's a little different. But it's something that the Knicks should be aware of. I want to see these actual roster spots go to more veterans than not, because I believe in the power of veteran presence going into the NBA playoffs, especially guys who have been playing in the playoffs before. That's my big fear, that if they sign Jeffries and Toppin to full-term contracts, these guys have never played a second of NBA playoff basketball, and now you're going to throw them into the absolute fire on the New York Knicks. No, you're not even. Tibbs is not going to play them. He would rather play 6 guys than play either of those two at all, and I don't want that to happen. So I don't know if this is the best idea for the Knicks in the long term. Though in the short term, it's fine. You do need to figure out what you're doing. Now, in an article talking specifically about Jacob being signed by Bleacher Report that just came out, basically what they had to say was he was undrafted in 23. He signed with the Knicks on a two-way contract in October. He helped lead the Westchester Knicks to a G League Showcase championship and made his NBA debut in December. Now, the Knicks also had Jacob before that. They basically agreed to him, I think, on an Exhibit 10 deal or an Exhibit 9, something like that. And the Knicks are unlikely to make Toppin a regular fixture in their rotation, but he can be a practice body and short minutes role player. Coming out of the break, New York exited the All-Star break with 12 players, and now they're at the league minimum of 14. And also, here's DaQuan Jeffries' stats for the NBA. The man has kind of been in the NBA for a few seasons now. Obviously, the numbers are not great, but in 57 games played and 5 games started, he's averaged 3 points per game. He's shot under 30% from 3 and 44% from the field. I mean, the numbers aren't the best, but he's not getting the greatest minutes in the world most of the time. I mean, he had his moment with the Kings and the Houston Rockets, I guess, but still, there's no real playoff experience for him. And then if you look at what these guys have done in the G League, it makes sense why the Knicks signed them. They don't really need another point guard, so Brandon Goodwin, who's kind of been one of their best players, I mean, their leading scorer and assist guy on the Westchester Knicks, did not get the call up. But Jeffries averaged 23 points per game while also shooting nearly 40% from 3. He balled out in the G League Showcase Cup, shooting, I think, 54% from 3 in those 2 games. And he was just absolutely monstrous. So was Jacob Toppin. And Toppin, for the season, in his 13 games played, starting all 13 of them, he averaged 22 points, pulled down 8.5 rebounds, also got 2.5 assists. The man was nice getting over a steal a game. Jacob Toppin has shown a lot in the G League. We've made a few different videos on Jacob Toppin just playing really well, and I can't wait to see if the Knicks use him, but knowing Tibbs, the answer is no, and these guys will probably be off the roster sooner rather than later for some vets who can actually, I don't want to say actually help, like these guys can't help, but some vets who have actually been there in the past and can help the New York Knicks in a more efficient way because the Knicks are more of a contending team than anything. And comment down below if you think the Knicks should keep these 2 on roster. Should they keep one? Should they cut both? Should they put Jacob back on a 2-way? Should they get rid of DaQuan Jeffries again? What should the Knicks do? Let me know in the comments. I'll be sure to respond. I read every single comment that are my videos. I don't read all Dariel's videos comments, but I do sometimes. So, I'll catch you on the next one. Go Knicks.